Ambassador Kate Vallon pressed a palm against the cold metal of the observation deck as another explosion lit up the darkness of space. The Zilani colony ship *Harmony's Dream* was dying, just like 17 others before it. Green biomechanical tendrils wrapped around its silver hull like hungry serpents, dissolving the advanced alloy plating as if it were paper. "Another 1,000 civilians lost," whispered her aide, a young Zilani named Riley Korvac. His blue-scale hands trembled as he updated the casualty reports on his datapad. The numbers kept climbing, 3 million dead in the past month alone. Kate's elongated ears drooped with exhaustion. The Zilani had always been peaceful traders, their crystalline cities floating through space like jewel flowers. Their technology focused on beauty and harmony, not warfare. Energy barriers that could deflect asteroid impacts, healing chambers that could mend any injury, ships that moved through space as gracefully as dancers. But none of it mattered against the Scourge. The enemy had appeared 6 months ago at the edge of Zilani space. At first, they looked like simple metal creatures, spider-like robots with glowing red sensors. The Zilani Council had tried to communicate, sending messages of peace and offers of trade. The Scourge's response was immediate and terrifying. They consumed everything. "Ambassador, the colony ship shields are failing," reported Communications Officer Beth Tanner from her station. The human-designed equipment hummed quietly around her, one of the few pieces of primitive technology the Zilani had adopted years ago for its reliability. Through the viewport, Kate watched the Scourge drones flow over Harmony's Dream like liquid metal. The ship's beautiful crystal gardens, visible through transparent domes, withered and blackened as the biomechanical parasites drained every ounce of energy. The Scourge didn't just destroy, they learned. Each attack made them stronger. "So, incoming transmission from Captain Drew Winters aboard the defense station," Beth announced, her voice tight with fear. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a grizzled Zilani captain whose face was streaked with sweat and panic. Behind him, sparks flew from damaged consoles as his crew worked desperately to maintain their position. "Ambassador Vallon, our plasma cannons are useless. The Scourge adapted to our frequency in less than 5 minutes. They are turning our own energy against us." His ship shuddered from another impact. "We've lost contact with the outer colonies. They are all gone." Kate closed her eyes. The Zilani had ruled this sector for over 1,000 years, bringing peace and prosperity to dozens of worlds. Their technology was envied across the galaxy, their wisdom sought by younger civilizations. Now they were watching their entire culture disappear, consumed by creatures that treated them like a meal. "What about the neural disruptors?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Ineffective. The Scourge learned to block them after the first hit." "Ambassador, they are not just adapting to our weapons, they are improving them. The energy blasts they are firing back at us are twice as powerful as our original designs." The transmission cut to static as another Zilani ship exploded in the distance. Kate watched the expanding cloud of debris, knowing that each piece of metal represented families, dreams, and lives cut short. Beth said softly, "We're receiving the final evacuation reports from the core worlds. Total population remaining, approximately 50 million, down from 8 billion 6 months ago." Kate's people were dying, and she was powerless to stop it. The Zilani High Council had tried everything: negotiation, retreat, even their most advanced weapons. Nothing worked. The Scourge just kept coming, growing stronger with each victory. Riley looked up from his station, his young face pale with desperation. "Ambassador, what if we send a distress call? Not just to the neighboring systems, but everywhere. Someone out there might have weapons we've never seen." Kate hesitated. The Zilani had always prided themselves on their independence. Asking for help went against everything they stood for. But as another colony ship's screams echoed across the communication channels, she realized pride was a luxury they could no longer afford. "Beth, prepare an emergency broadcast on all frequencies," Kate ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Send it beyond our borders if necessary. Use every relay station, every communication array we have left." Beth's fingers danced across her console, configuring the transmission array to maximum range. "Ready, Ambassador. What's the message?" Kate stared at the dying colony ship, watching the last of its lights fade as the Scourge finished its terrible feast. She thought of her people's children, their artists, They're dreamers, all of them counting on her to find a miracle. "Help us," she said simply. "The scourge cannot be stopped. Any who receive this, please respond." The signal burst from their ship like a desperate cry, racing through space at faster than light speeds. It bounced off relay stations, passed through civilized systems, and kept going into the unknown regions beyond. Kate watched the transmission indicator show green, knowing their message was spreading across the galaxy. What she didn't realize was that a desperate plea had reached far beyond the safe borders of known space, penetrating into the dead zones, vast regions marked on every star chart as uninhabitable death traps where no civilized species could possibly survive. In those dark corners of the galaxy, something heard her call. Admiral Jack Morrison sat in the command chair of the HMS Defiance, a massive battleship that drifted silently through the void of the Terran exclusion zone. The ship's hull bore the scars of countless battles, plasma burns, impact craters, and patches of mismatched armor that told the story of humanity's violent journey through the stars. Around him, the bridge hummed with quiet efficiency as his crew monitored the endless darkness of space. The distress signal crackled through their communications array at 0347 hours, jolting communications specialist Beth Carter from her routine monitoring duties. The alien transmission was desperate, broadcasting on every frequency imaginable with a plea for help against something called the Scourge. "Admiral, we're picking up an emergency broadcast from the Zilani Confederation," Beth announced, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "They are calling for assistance against some kind of adaptive enemy force." Jack's weathered face remained stone-cold as he listened to the translated message. At 6-2, the Admiral had seen more warfare than most species experienced in their entire evolutionary history. His gray hair was cropped military short, and a jagged scar ran from his left temple to his jaw, a souvenir from the Proxima Rebellion 15 years earlier. "Another species facing extinction," he said, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "They sent this to everyone, including us." Lieutenant Diana Walsh looked up from her tactical station, her young face troubled. The 28-year-old officer had been born in the exclusion zone, never knowing life outside humanity's enforced isolation. "Sir, we're still under quarantine protocols. The galaxy considers us monsters." Jack stood and walked to the massive viewport that dominated the forward section of the bridge. Outside, the Terran Defense Fleet stretched across space like a constellation of predators. 73 warships of various classes, each one a testament to humanity's brutal approach to survival. The ships didn't look elegant like those of other species. They were angular, aggressive, and covered in weapon systems that other civilizations considered barbaric. The HMS Thunderstrike floated nearby, its hull bristling with kinetic railguns that could punch through a moon. Beyond that, the carrier HMS Retribution launched patrol fighters, small, fast craft that moved like angry wasps through the vacuum. Each pilot was trained to ram enemy ships if necessary, a tactic that horrified other species, but had saved human colonies more times than anyone cared to count. "Tell me about our history with galactic civilization," Jack said to his bridge crew, though he knew they all understood the story too well. Chief Science Officer Ryan Blake, a tall man with premature gray hair from years of combat stress, activated the historical database. "First contact was 212 years ago. Sir, the Altarian Trade Federation discovered Earth during what they called a routine exploration mission. They found us in the middle of World War VII. The holographic display showed images of Earth's scarred surface, cities in ruins, oceans boiling with chemical weapons, and humans fighting with ferocity that shocked the peaceful Altarians. The alien visitors had expected to find a typical developing civilization, perhaps one ready for gentle guidance into galactic society. Instead, they discovered a species that had survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, global plagues, and wars that would have exterminated any other race. The Altarians tried to establish peaceful contact, Ryan continued. But when their diplomatic ship was attacked by the European coalition, thinking it was an enemy weapon, the humans who survived the crash were interrogated harshly. Jack remembered the classified reports. The human military had captured alien technology and reverse-engineered it within months. Instead of using it for exploration or healing, humanity immediately weaponized everything they could understand. Faster-than-light travel became the foundation for planet-killer missiles. Alien medical technology became biological weapons. Energy shield became plasma cannons. The Galaxy's reaction were predictable. Added Weapons Officer Tony Park, a stocky man whose hands never strayed far from his console's firing controls. They declared us Deathworlders, a species too dangerous to interact with civilized society. The exclusion zone was established to contain us. Jack nodded grimly. For over 2 centuries, humanity had been trapped in their own sector of space, marked with warning beacons that declared the region a contaminated dead zone unsuitable for intelligent life. Other species whispered stories of the humans who came from Sulfuri, a planet so hostile that it spawned a race of warriors who fought each other for entertainment and considered nuclear war just another Tuesday. The truth was more complex. Yes, humans were aggressive. Yes, they were incredibly dangerous when threatened. But they were also fiercely protective of those they considered allies, and they had an almost supernatural ability to adapt and survive in conditions that would kill other species instantly. Diana pulled up the tactical analysis of the Zilani situation. So, based on their transmission, this scourge sounds like some kind of adaptive swarm intelligence. They've already consumed most of the Zilani colonies. Jack studied the data. The scourge's ability to learn and counter enemy tactics reminded him of humanity's own evolutionary pressures. Earth had taught humans to be flexible, ruthless, and unpredictable because anything else meant death. "How many ships do we have ready for deployment?" he asked. 68 combat-ready vessels, sir, replied Diana. Full complement of Marines, fighters, and support craft. The new gravitational torpedoes are loaded and ready. Jack looked around at his crew, men and women who had been born into exile, raised on stories of how their species was too dangerous for polite galactic society. They were the children and grandchildren of the original monsters that the galaxy had locked away. "So," Beth said quietly, "if we respond to this distress call, we'll be violating quarantine. The Galactic Council could interpret it as an act of aggression." Jack turned back to the viewport, watching his fleet move through space with predatory grace. Each ship carried technologies that other species considered war crimes, gravitational weapons, quantum viruses, and combat doctrines based on 200 years of isolation and the constant threat of annihilation. "Send word to the fleet," Jack decided, his voice carrying across the bridge with absolute authority. "We're going to help them." The bridge fell silent for a moment. Then Diana smiled, the first genuine expression of joy Jack had seen from his crew in months. "Aye, sir. Shall I prepare the standard first contact protocols?" Jack's scarred face showed the ghost of a grin. "No, Lieutenant. We're going to show the galaxy what Deathworlders do best." Ambassador Kate Vallen's heart nearly stopped when the sensor readings appeared on her screen. What started as a single contact had multiplied into something that defied belief. Her communications officer, Beth Tanner, stared at the display with wide eyes, her human-trained fingers trembling over the controls. "Ambassador, I'm reading over 300 contacts approaching our position," Beth whispered, her voice barely audible over the humming of the ship's systems. "Their energy signatures are massive." Kate moved to the main tactical display, her elongated Zilani fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The approaching fleet showed up as red dot against the star field, but these weren't the elegant, curved vessels of civilized space. Each ship registered as a floating fortress of weapons and armor, moving at speeds that should have torn them apart. "How fast are they moving?" Kate asked, though she dreaded the answer. 0.7 light speed. In normal space. Beth's voice cracked with disbelief. "That's impossible. The gravitational stress alone should crush any living thing aboard those ships." Through the viewport, Kate could see distant flashes of light as the unknown fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The ships materialized like predators emerging from the dark, their hulls scarred and angular, bristling with weapon systems that made Zilani military vessels look like children's toys. The lead ship was enormous, easily 5 times the size of Kate's flagship. Its hull was a patchwork of different metals, suggesting countless repairs and modifications. Massive gun barrels protruded from every surface, and smaller craft swarmed around it like angry insects protecting their hive. "Those are warships," whispered Riley Korvac, Kate's young aide. His blue scales had paled to almost white with fear. "Look at the weapon configurations. They're not explorers or traders. They are built for one thing only." Kate's relief at seeing potential rescue ships transformed into cold terror. The galaxy was full of stories about pirates and raiders who preyed on desperate civilizations. Had her distress call attracted something worse than the Scourge? They are broadcasting, Beth announced, her voice tight with nervousness. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the lead vessel. Kate had expected to see familiar alien features, perhaps the insectoid Kithra or the crystalline Vorthan. Instead, she found herself staring at something from the darkest legends of galactic civilization. The figure on screen was clearly humanoid, but there was something predatory about his weathered features. His hair was gray and military short, and a jagged scar ran down the left side of his face. Behind him, Kate could see other figures moving with efficient, deadly precision across a bridge that looked more like a weapons control center than a diplomatic vessel. "This is Admiral Jack Morrison of the Human Terran Fleet," came the transmission, his voice carrying an authority that made Kate's spine straighten involuntarily. "We received your distress call. Prepare for immediate evacuation of civilian populations." Kate felt her blood turn to ice. Humans. She had summoned the Deathworlders. Every civilized species in the galaxy knew the stories. 2 centuries ago, first contact with humanity had ended in disaster. The peaceful Altarian explorers who discovered Earth reported finding a species so violent and aggressive that they were immediately classified as a galactic threat. Humans came from Sol 3, a planet so hostile that it shouldn't have been able to support intelligent life. Instead, it had produced warriors who treated nuclear warfare as routine conflict resolution. The Galactic Council had established a Terran exclusion zone within a decade of first contact, marking human space as a contaminated death zone. Warning beacons surrounded their territory with messages in every known language. Extreme danger, death world species, approach forbidden. Now Kate had called them directly to her people's doorstep. She forced herself to respond, keeping her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her throat. "Admiral Morrison, we are grateful for your response. But we must warn you, the Scourge adapt to all our weapons. They learn from every attack and become stronger." Jack's scarred face showed what might have been amusement, but there was no warmth in it. "We don't fight like you do." Before Kate could ask what he meant, her tactical officer, Lieutenant Danacross, called out in alarm. "Ambassador, I'm detecting massive energy buildups from the human fleet. They are charging weapons systems I've never seen before." Kate watched in fascination and horror as the human ships began to transform. Hull panels slid back to reveal weapon systems that violated several galactic conventions on warfare. She saw gravitational torpedo tubes that could collapse space-time itself, plasma cannons that burned at temperatures found in stellar cores, and launch bays opening to disgorge swarms of fighters that moved like living things. "Admiral Morrison," Kate said carefully, "our people are not warriors. We've always been peaceful traders and explorers. We don't understand military tactics." "That's obvious, Ambassador," Jack replied, his tone not unkind but utterly matter-of-fact. "Your distress call showed tactical information that any first-year military academy student would know to encrypt. You've been broadcasting your defensive capabilities, civilian population numbers, and evacuation routes on open channel for hours." Kate felt her face burn with embarrassment. The Zilani had never needed military security protocols. Their civilization had known peace for over 1,000 years. "Don't worry," Jack continued, and for the first time, there was something almost gentle in his voice. "We'll handle the Scourge, but I need you to do exactly what I tell you, when I tell you. Human combat doctrine doesn't leave room for debate or committee decisions." Through her viewport, Kate watched as a human fleet arranged itself into attack formations that looked more like pack-hunting behavior than military tactics. The ships moved with predatory grace, each one covering the others in overlapping fields of fire. "Admiral," she said quietly, "what exactly are you planning to do?" Jack's smile was terrifying in its simplicity. "We're going to show the galaxy why they locked us away in the first place." As if summoned by his words, sensors detected new contact at the edge of the system. The Scourge had arrived, their biomechanical forms writhing through space like living nightmares. But for the first time since the invasion began, Kate felt something other than despair. She had called for help, and the Deathworlders had answered. The battle began at exactly 1,347 hours when Captain Ryan Blake's destroyer, HMS Avalanche, opened fire with weapons that made Kate's sensors scream warnings about illegal military technology. The gravitational torpedoes tore through space, creating ripples in reality itself that twisted the Scourge biomechanical hulls into impossible shapes. "By the void," whispered Lieutenant Dana Cross from her position at Kate's tactical station. "They're using weapons that bend space-time. That's been banned by every galactic treaty for the past 3 centuries." Kate watched in horrified fascination as the human fleet spread out in what looked like complete chaos. There were no elegant formations, no coordinated energy barrages like civilized species used. Instead, the human ships moved like a pack of predators, each one covering the others while striking at unexpected angles. The Scourge responded exactly as they had to every previous enemy. They adapted. The biomechanical creatures absorbed the energy from the first gravitational torpedo impacts, their hulls shifting and changing to deflect similar attacks. Kate had seen this happen dozens of times before. Within minutes, the Scourge would become immune to humanity's weapons and begin their inevitable counterattack. But Captain Mike Stevens had other plans. This is Stevens aboard the HMS Thunderbolt, came the transmission across all channels. "All ships, execute Protocol Omega. See you in hell, boys." Kate's blood turned cold as she realized what she was watching. Stevens' ship, a mid-sized cruiser bristling with nuclear weapons, suddenly accelerated directly toward the largest Scourge vessel. The biomechanical creature, easily 10 times the size of the human ship, began adapting its defenses against the incoming kinetic impact. That's when Stevens detonated every nuclear warhead on his ship at point-blank range. The explosion lit up the void like a newborn star. The Scourge vessel, caught completely off guard by such an insane tactic, disintegrated in the blast. But more importantly, the radiation and debris created a cloud of destruction that the Scourge couldn't adapt to because there was nothing left to adapt against. "They're insane," Kate whispered, watching the expanding fireball where Stevens and his crew had just sacrificed themselves. They destroyed their own ship. Beth Tanner called out from communications, her voice tight with disbelief. "I'm reading 4 to 7 similar detonations across the battle zone. The humans are using suicide attacks as standard tactics." But the madness was just beginning. Commander Anna Walsh's Chemical Warfare Division deployed weapons that made Kate's stomach turn. Instead of clean energy beams or elegant plasma bursts, the humans released clouds of molecular acid that dissolved Scourge hulls at the atomic level. When the creatures tried to adapt, Walsh switched to biological weapons that attacked their organic components, then to quantum viruses that corrupted their digital systems. "How are they doing this?" Riley Korvac asked, his young voice filled with awe and terror. "The Scourge should be learning from each attack." The answer came from Major Tom Parker's Marine Assault Division. Kate watched in stunned silence as human drop pods launched directly at Scourge vessels, not to deliver missiles or energy weapons, but to board the enemy ships with actual soldiers. The humans who emerged from those pods defied everything Kate understood about civilized warfare. They wore powered armor that turned them into walking tanks, carrying weapons that fired explosive projectiles instead of energy beams. But most shocking of all, they fought hand-to-hand in the vacuum of space, using blades and improvised weapons when their guns ran empty. Combat footage coming in from Assault Team Delta, Dana reported, her voice barely steady. "The humans they are fighting inside the Scourge ships. Physical combat. With knives." Kate stared at the tactical display showing tiny human figures moving through the corridors of biomechanical vessels, leaving destruction in their wake. The Scourge had never encountered anything like this. Their adaptation protocols were designed for technological threats, not for warriors who would grab alien creatures with their bare hands and beat them to death with pieces of their own ship. The turning point came when Lieutenant Jessica Brooks led her fighter squadron in what could only be described as organized chaos. Instead of maintaining formation and coordinating attacks like proper pilots, the human fighters scattered in all directions, each one attacking different targets with completely unpredictable tactics. Some pilots rammed their fighters into Scourge sensor arrays. Others deployed mines that exploded randomly rather than on proximity triggers. A few actually flew their ships inside Scourge vessels through hull breaches, then self-destructed to cause maximum internal damage. "The Scourge adaptation matrix is failing," Dana announced, her voice filled with wonder. "They can't process the tactical data. The human attack patterns don't follow any logical sequence." Kate realized what was happening. The Scourge were like a virus, efficient, logical, always seeking the optimal solution. They could adapt to any strategy that followed recognizable patterns. But humans didn't fight logically. They fought with emotion, desperation, and a willingness to die that completely broke the Scourge's ability to predict and counter their moves. Admiral Morrison's voice came over the communication channels, calm and matter-of-fact despite the chaos around him. The Scourge thinks like a virus, efficient, logical. Humans don't. We fight dirty, die hard, and protect our friends at any cost. As if to prove his point, the human fleet suddenly changed tactics again. Ships that had been using chemical weapons switched to kinetic bombardment. Vessels that had been ramming enemies began deploying gravity mines. The constant tactical shift created a battlefield so chaotic that even Kate's advanced senses couldn't predict what would happen next. The Scourge, faced with an enemy that refused to follow any recognizable combat doctrine, began doing something Kate had never seen before. They started retreating. The biomechanical creatures, invincible for centuries, were pulling back from human forces that fought like berserkers from ancient mythology. Impossible, Riley breathed. The Scourge are actually running away. Within hours, the legendary swarm that had consumed entire civilizations broke apart and fled into deep space, unable to adapt to humanity's beautiful, terrible chaos. For the first time in centuries, the Scourge had met something more dangerous than themselves. Kate stared at the aftermath of the battle. Debris fields where human ships had sacrificed themselves, radiation clouds from nuclear detonations, and the scattered remains of Scourge vessels that had been torn apart by warriors who fought with their hands as much as their weapons. The Deathworlders had kept their promise. They had saved her people, but at a cost that civilized species would never be willing to pay. Kate stood on the bridge of her flagship 3 days after the battle, watching something she had never expected to see. The human warships that had torn through the Scourge like avenging angels were now carefully tending to Zalani survivors. The HMS Defiance, Admiral Morrison's massive battleship, had deployed rescue shuttles that moved through the debris fields with surprising gentleness. Ambassador, the human medical teams are requesting permission to board our hospital ships, reported Beth Tanner from her communication station. Her voice carried a note of wonder that had become common among the crew since the battle ended. Kate nodded, still struggling to process what she was witnessing. These same humans who had rammed nuclear-armed ships into enemy formations were now carefully extracting wounded Zalani from damaged vessels. Their rescue shuttles, designed for combat insertion, had been hastily modified with medical equipment and life support systems. Through the viewport, she watched a human transport dock with a damaged colony ship Morning Star. The Zalani vessel had suffered severe hull breaches during the Scourge attack, leaving hundreds of civilians trapped in sealed compartments with dwindling life support. Kate's own rescue teams had declared the ship too dangerous to approach, but the humans had simply cut through the wreckage with industrial tools and pulled out every survivor they could find. The human medics are reporting something strange, added Lieutenant Danacross from her medical monitoring station. They are not just treating our wounded, they are sharing their medical technology. Advanced healing compounds, surgical techniques we've never seen before. Riley Korvac, Kate's young aide, pulled up the casualty reports on his datapad. Ambassador, the human medical intervention has reduced our expected casualties by 60%. They've saved over 12,000 lives in the past 3 days. Kate found this harder to understand than the brutal efficiency of human warfare. The galaxy had painted humans as monsters for over 2 centuries, but these supposed Deathworlders were working around the clock to save alien civilians they had never met before. Beth announced. Admiral Morrison is requesting a private communication channel. Kate straightened her diplomatic robes and activated the secure link. Jack Morrison's image appeared on her personal screen, and she was struck again by the contradiction he represented. His face bore the scars of countless battles, but his eyes held a gentleness that seemed impossible for someone who commanded such devastating military force. Admiral Morrison, he began formally, our people are grateful for your assistance with the rescue operations. We had not expected such comprehensive aid. Jack's weathered features showed a slight smile. Ambassador, when humans fight, we fight to win. When we heal to save lives. We don't do anything halfway. Kate watched through her viewport as another human rescue shuttle emerged from the wreckage of Zelani transport, carrying dozens of survivors to safety. The shuttle's hull was scorched and dented from navigating through unstable debris fields that no sane pilot would enter. "Admiral, I must ask you something," Kate said, gathering her courage. "Your fleet could demand anything from us right now. Territory, resources, technology, even complete submission. We are defenseless, and you have proven your military superiority beyond any doubt. Yet your ships are preparing to leave. Why?" Jack was quiet for a moment, his eyes distant as he watched his own rescue operations through his bridge viewports. "Ambassador, do you know what a death world really is?" Kate nodded. "A planet so hostile that it shouldn't be able to support intelligent life. The galactic databases classify Earth as having extreme weather, geological instability, dangerous wildlife, and toxic atmospheric conditions." "That's all true," Jack agreed. "Earth tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, pandemics, predators that could tear us apart with their bare claws. Most species would have gone extinct within a few thousand generations." He paused, his scarred face reflecting on memories Kate could only imagine. "But Earth didn't just make us tough, Ambassador. It taught us to protect each other. When everything in your environment wants to kill you, the only way to survive is to make sure no one fights alone. Humans learned that we're stronger when we stand together." Kate felt something shift in her understanding. "The galaxy fears you because you're warriors." "The galaxy fears us because they've never seen warriors who fight to protect instead of conquer," Jack corrected. "Every species we've encountered in the past 2 centuries has assumed that military strength equals territorial ambition. They couldn't understand that humans fight hardest when we're defending others." Through the communication link, Kate could see Jack's bridge crew working with quiet efficiency. She noticed that many of them were young, born and raised in the exclusion zone, never knowing anything but isolation from the galactic community. "Admiral Morrison," she said slowly, "why did you help us? The galaxy has shunned your people for generations. We gave you no reason to risk your lives to strangers." Jack's image became perfectly still, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 2 centuries of human isolation. "Because you asked for help, Ambassador. That's what humans do." The simple truth of it hit Kate like a physical blow. Humans hadn't responded to her distress call because they wanted something from the Zelani. They had come because someone, somewhere, was in danger and needed protection. "Your fleet saved our entire civilization," Kate said quietly. "How can we possibly repay such a debt?" Jack's smile was genuine now, transforming his battle-scarred features. "Just remember that the next time someone calls for help, Ambassador, pass it forward." As the Deathworlder fleet prepared for faster-than-light travel, Kate realized that the galaxy's greatest fear had been completely wrong. Humans weren't monsters seeking conquest and domination. They were guardians who fought not for glory or territory, but to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Within 6 months, the Terran exclusion zone was quietly dissolved by emergency vote of the Galactic Council. The warning beacons were removed, and the first official diplomatic missions began traveling to human space. Humanity had found its first ally among the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same. Asterisk the END asterisk.